You're in a good place now. You are listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. Are you in danger? Are you in danger of having a midlife crisis? You know, on tonight's show, I'm identifying the 6 factors that can spark a midlife crisis. You know, afterwards, I'll be offering you the tools to overcome these gateway issues and how to successfully plow ahead in your life and bypass the midlife crisis altogether. You know, I think it's interesting about the midlife crisis. I think this is something that we all get scared about because I think a lot of us wonder, when is it going to happen to us? When is the time coming around where we are going to be in a crisis? And I think we all understand the visible signs. We've all seen the visible signs. Our friends having those fast cars. The Corvette comes to mind, the red Corvette. I don't know why, it just always has for me when we talk about midlife crisis. You know, what about the fast women? You know, your buddies get divorced and they end up, you know, getting with some fast woman and it gets crazy. You know, the next time you see them, you know, their ties around their head, their shirt's untucked, and they're telling you about how great the woman is on their 15th beer. You know, what about drinking, just getting out of control, going out partying all the time? Or remember back in the day when Morgan Freeman and everybody got their earrings? Remember that? The big male earring, you know, kind of midlife crisis earring scenario. I mean, you can name several actors that fall into that category, the earring scenario. They got them all. And that was, I believe, in a midlife crisis. That was during that situation. You know, what about the divorce and dating the 20-year-old? I think these are all symbols of having a midlife crisis. But I really want to talk more, get past the symbols, get past the cliches, really, of what a midlife crisis is. I want to get past that. And I want to move into the real factors. The factors that actually spark the buying of the Corvette, the divorcing, finding the fast 20-year-old girl. I want to get past the symbols and I want to merge right into the factors. Because I believe these factors are what prompts us all to get into this midlife crisis. And I'm not always just stressing the 20-year-old girl, okay? Come on. I was just, you know, making a point here. But you have friends that you've looked around and you realize, like, doggone it, they're going through a midlife crisis. Wonder if that's ever going to happen to me. You know, the human condition is a funny thing because we never really think about things happening to us, do we? It's always happening to them. Oh, look at poor so-and-so. You know, his life is totally screwed up. I mean, you all know what I'm talking about. Everybody listening has a friend right now that you see them. They're going through the crisis. They look screwed up all the time. They look like they're half there, you know? And every time you ask them how they're doing, oh, life's great, life's great, life's great. Life couldn't be better. You know, life couldn't be better. If you get them, you know, after they've had more beers than usual, they might tell you that the girl that they're with is kicking their butt and they're barely holding on, but they're having a fun time. And so let's talk about those 6 factors. You know, the first factor that I like to talk about is experiencing burnout. Burnout. I mean, how many of us listening and talking tonight have dealt with burnout? Burnout in the career. You know, burnout in your career is a rough one because a lot of us worked really hard to get where we are. We care to a degree about where we are, or we wouldn't be working there. And, you know, over time, things kind of get not so cool, or, you know, it just starts wearing on you. And I think one of the biggest factors that you're about to hit a midlife crisis is immediate burnout. It's like you wake up one day and you go, what in the heck am I doing? I hate my job. I don't like the people I work with. I don't really know where I'm going with this. I had a great idea when I started, and now I don't even remember what that was. I'm torn. I don't know what to do. And I think there's a lot of people out there, you know, including a lot of people listening right now that are experiencing massive burnout. I mean, that's the thing about life, is that we have to do a lot of the same things over and over again, and we're hoping that we don't get burnt out over it. And that's true. It's hard not to get burnt out. You know, and also we sometimes experience marriage burnout, family burnout. We've had enough. We've had it up to here. Tired of this stuff. Tired of this crap. I mean, when is anything going to get interesting? What's going to happen next? Is this all there is? Is this all there is until the day I die? Holy crap, what am I going to do now? And, I understand. I have people all the time that come into my office. My clients come in and they go, I just don't know what to do. I thought that, starting this business or doing that or doing this was the way I wanted to go. And I'm just totally burnt out. I've had enough. I'm stressed up to here. Things don't seem to be getting better. They seem to be getting worse. On top of that, every time I get home, I'm not happy I'm home. The kids are irritating the last nerve in my back. And I just don't know really what's going on. And I feel like I'm living my life for everybody but myself. I feel like this is it. This is all. There's all there is. I'm just a nursemaid and I'm just a babysitter and I'm a coddler and I'm a workaholic and that's all I got and that's it and that's all I get and thank you for playing. And I know that a lot of people listening right now, you feel burnt out. You had enough. You need some change. It's like the same thing over and over and over again. I mean, Einstein's idea of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. You're like, why don't I quit all this right now? If I quit all this right now, maybe I can make a change. Maybe my life might get better if I can just make a big, rapid, quick change right now. It's like those guys at the football games, the man and the woman duo, where they have like this, it's kind of like a separator, almost like if you're in a trying room, when you're trying clothes on at a store, and they can change real quick into different outfits, right? I see them a lot at professional sports events, during halftime, and it's called the quick change group, and they do a quick change. And I think that some of us feel that if we just go into that trying room, that dressing room, and we put on a new outfit and we come out, things might be different. Life might be different. Maybe I try something new. I think that that's something that we all think about is because we wonder if this is all there is to offer. Is this all there is? Really? And I think we experience burnout in work and career, and we wonder where things are going. Is this going to be the best of the best? Is this it? Is this all there is to offer? Is this the best my life's going to be? What am I doing? I think there was a song out there, This Isn't My Beautiful Wife, This Isn't My Beautiful Life, something like that. It was a pretty funny song. Happy days go by. Okay, so you know what I'm getting to? It's the concept of, am I happy? I mean, this is my one life to live. And I'm looking around at everybody else trying to figure out what's going on and what I need to be doing. I like to listen to people, especially at the lunch table or at dinner when people are talking about their life. And you always know when people start comparing themselves to other people. Because you can tell. Because there's a different look on their face. Like it goes from being inquisitive to interesting to just plain mad. Kidding. You see a perplexed look. You might see a very internal thinking, pondering, deep thought look. You could just see anger and resentment. And you always see, there's always one couple that talks about, we've been vacationing on the south of France and so-and-so's a CEO. And then we have that house in Paris, we like to go to. And then, another couple's over there going, man, I live out here. I live outside the city. I've lived out here in a community because my kids had to go to school. I'm in the suburbs. I'm working my butt off. I thought my company would be doing a little better by now. Instead, it's really not. And I don't feel like anything's changed in the last 10 years. And then you got this couple over here talking about how they, climb Mount Kilimanjaro. How great life is and how much Cristal they drink on the weekend. What am I doing? I mean, my wife's gained all this weight, or flip-flop, my husband's gained all this weight. The only thing we do is sit at home and watch TV. Is this the best it's ever going to get? I mean, Dancing with the Stars is almost going off. We're in the finale, for this season. We might have to go back to the DVR and watch them again and act like we don't know who got eliminated. Think about it. I mean, there's a lot of people out there moving and shaking, and a lot of us, though, have a lot of work to do, and so we are working, and we are in our situation, and some of it we like, but some of it we go, oh my gosh, is this the best there's ever going to be? Is this what I have to look forward to? I mean, am I going to look back and go, my God, I just ruined the best years of my life? And I think when we're dealing with being on the borderline of being in a midlife crisis, we have this rapid burnout because we just don't even know if we're happy. And we wonder what to do about it because we have more questions than answers. We have more questions. Am I doing it right? Am I living right? Am I doing this right? Or am I not? When we're going to be talking more about those 6 factors that indicate that you're on the verge of having a midlife crisis, as well as later on, I'm going to be talking about how to deal with this, the tools that you can use to overcome and to bypass the crises at hand. Stay tuned because Perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess, will be back in 2 shakes.
Turn it up and jump in the deep end on Perspectives. Now, here's Ashley.
Welcome back live to Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. Are you in danger of having a midlife crisis? Tonight I'm identifying the 6 factors that can spark a midlife crisis. Later on, I'll be actually talking about the issues and how to successfully plow ahead in your life and how to find happiness and how to bypass that midlife crisis altogether. And earlier in the first segment, we were talking about the symbols of a midlife crisis. What things come to mind is a Corvette, red Corvette, fast cars, fast women, lots of drinking, going crazy like you were back in high school or college and reliving this whole thing over again. And I think those are the symbols, the outward symbols of when we identify somebody as having a midlife crisis. But we don't really think about what's going on internally in our mind or what's going on internally in someone else's mind. And I think able to identify if you're in danger of having a midlife crisis, we need to talk about these major factors. And we talked about the idea of experiencing a burnout. Burnout is a big deal, whether it's in a career burnout or relationship, marriage burnout, family burnout. I mean, heck, when you do something for years and years and years at a time, there's got to be a little bit of burnout here and there at some point in time. And we have to sit there and refocus it or figure out what to do with it. And there's some burnout that I don't know if you can come back from. I think there's some of it that we just have to sit there and realize what is it that we need to do next and take a change and move on. However, when we're facing a crisis, we have a tendency of wanting to jump into the next thing. We don't really think about it. We don't really think about the consequences. We're going to jump on out of here. Got to get out. Got to move on. Got to do what I got to do. I got to move and shake. I'm a mover and a shaker. And I like to fly by the seat of my pants. I'm a fly by the seat of my pants kind of gal. That's how it gets when you're in a midlife crisis. So let's talk the next factor that indicates that you might be on the verge and in danger of having a midlife crisis is you're feeling as though your best years are behind you. You heard me. You're feeling as though your best years are behind you. Wow, that's a big one. It's a lot like in high school. I have some friends that were like the high school jocks. They were the high school football team. They were the guys that every girl wanted to date. And some of those guys went on to college and play football. And a few of those guys left college and went pro. But I only know 2 guys out of my high school that went pro. And I know about 15 guys that went into college, got scholarships. And the rest of them, the last days they played football was in high school. And I think that when you feel as though your best years of your life are kind of passed you by, you have that same feeling as the jocks in high school that didn't sign the dotted line with the college they wanted to for a 4-year scholarship. And fast forward that for the guys that played in college and wanted to play pro really bad, the same guys that didn't get drafted. That to me is a feeling of your best years behind you. I mean, it also reminds me of kid actors. Think about kid actors. You're an actor. Everybody knows you at the age of 6, 5. Look at some of these kids, like the Olsen twins. I mean, there was recently a situation that took place with Everybody Loves Raymond twin. But think about these kids. They have all this fame at such an early age. And then, let's just say that they fall out of fame. Best years of their lives behind them, they feel. What are they going to do next? What's new? Where's their life going to take them? And I think that a lot of us might fall into this trap because it can feel overwhelming. It really can. Because we've gotten all the way to this age, and I think that midlife crisis can come at different various ages. I don't think there's a prescription of, okay, 40 years old, tag them and bag them. I don't think it's 50 either. I think it can happen almost any time of your life. And I think that it can happen when we have a lot of questions about the direction we want to go. Where are we heading? Where do we want to go? It's kind of like when I talk to kids and they tell me that they're majoring in business administration. Not that there's anything wrong with majoring in business administration. That's fine. I'm not sitting there talking crap about business administration, but I'm saying, I go, why? Why business administration? Well, seemed like the right thing to do. I mean, I'm not going to make any money in the art scene, so I might as well do something in business administration. And it's that same feeling as you follow this protocol, this prescription for supposed success. And then later on down the road, you wonder where all the good years went. And I think some of us fell into that where we didn't know what to do. And so we did what we thought was the smart thing to do. We did what we thought everybody else wanted us to do. We did what we thought would cause the least amount of strife and the most amount of payout. And I think we get to a certain age where we realize that maybe we didn't choose it because we loved it. We might have known that a long time ago. But then we wonder, is there anything gratifying about what we're doing? And when you start questioning a lot of things, you start worrying and you start looking back to all the years of your life and saying, what have I done? I could have switched all this. I could have gone back to college, gotten another degree, and been working in the industry I wanted to work in, all of that by now. And I haven't done any of it. I'm behind the eight ball. I don't know what to do. Oh, my God. And I think that a lot of times we feel as though the best years of our lives have gone by us because we compare ourselves to other people. That's just human nature. How successful so-and-so is. We all have that major successful friend. You know what I'm talking about. You know who I'm talking about. The one that seems to always have the best career. Everybody knows them. They're so successful. Life seems so good for them. And you're trying to, compete. But, we can't compete with that because, we have no idea what that person's life's about. And we have no idea if we would even like to be in that life. And I think, let's go a step further, is I think it's really interesting, too, because a lot of times I wonder if feeling as though the best years of our lives are behind us, is that because we feel like we haven't done enough? The I haven't done enough in my life deal. You know what I'm saying? Where you kind of go, man, maybe I didn't live as much as I could have. Maybe I didn't enjoy as much as I could have. Maybe I didn't learn as much as I could have. Maybe I didn't put myself out there. Maybe I'm just here and I could have done all that, and instead I'm stuck out here in the suburbs dealing with life when I could be, sailing in Greece. Who knows? And when we feel like the best years of our lives are behind us, we start, looking at the way we look, checking the visibility. How does my face look? How many wrinkles can I count? Are there crow's feet? Oh, God, not crow's feet. Oh, God. I might have to go see the doctor in a couple of days and see what they can do for me, because the best years of my life are behind me. And I think we have to sit there and reconfigure, honestly, what do the best years of our lives mean? I have a friend of mine that we used to hang out when we were younger, and we were crazy. We were absolutely crazy. And, I know that most people can connect with that because you have a friend or two that y'all just went off the chain all the time. We don't have to talk about it now, but you can just remember. You remember the times. And the other day, we were talking, and at the end of the conversation, we laughed. And at the end of the conversation, she was like, man, those were the best years. I'd give anything to relive that again. And I was like, what? What do you mean? And she goes, those were the best years of my life, Ashley. That was a blast, man. Hung out every night, drank, got crazy, hung out with all our friends, and everything was always a party, and it was always fun. And I go, man, I guess I don't remember it like that. And I didn't want to burst her bubble, so I was like, you know what? Those were good times. Those were good times. But I got off the phone and I was like, man, I wouldn't want to repeat those years. Those weren't the best years of my life. Oh, God. They were far from the best years of my life. They were the most screwed up years of my life. But then I started thinking, what are the best years of my life? And you know what? There are no best years, I don't feel. I just don't feel like there are any best years. I think we have to keep looking at life as though every year and every day is going to be great. And there's going to be some ups and downs, some ebbs and flows. That's just the way life is. It's the way life is. But it's okay. Not everything is going to be peaches and cream. Not everything is going to be rainbows and unicorns and jazz hands. Sometimes it's going to just stink. But for the most part, I started thinking about that. I was like, have I ever had the best years of my life? And no. I think these are the great years, but I don't think they're the best years. I think the best is yet to come. I got to believe that. And I know it, and I think all of us know it to a degree, that the best is still to come. But we have to be healthy, honest with ourselves, and able to acknowledge that. Because that's a part of life. I think it's easy for us to label those are the best years of our life because maybe we were going crazy or having fun. But I think that when we do that, we do ourselves a disservice. Because we basically take ourselves out of the present moment, and all of a sudden we moved ourselves into the past moment, and now the present can never be as good as the past, because the past was what? The best years of our life. Those are some strong words there. When we return, we're going to be talking more about the best years of our lives, as well as getting into the third factor, our goals not satisfied, is another leading reason why we might be facing a midlife crisis. Stay tuned, because Perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess, will be back this time in 2 shakes.
This is Jake Busey, and you're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. Tonight we're talking about midlife crisis. Are you in danger of having a midlife crisis? And right before the break, I was talking about we can feel as though the best years of our life are behind us. And I know some friends of mine that feel that way. I have some friends, I gave you the example earlier about playing football in high school or college and not making pro. Also about those years where we had a great time. We were partying it up, going out every night. And I told you about how my friend literally told me those are the best years of my life. And I can't say that about my life. Because I think that when we start labeling the best years of our lives, we start, downgrading our current situation. And I think that every day can be the best years of our lives. Every day, every year can be good. But I think that when we label things, we kind of change it up. Because we worry if anything's going to get better. Are we going to be stuck? Are we never going to be happy again? And so now let's talk about the next factor, the third factor that can identify if you're about to have a midlife crisis. You feel as though your goals have not been satisfied. Your goals have not been satisfied. Your life goals haven't been achieved. And you feel that life is passing you by. You wanted to do X, Y, Z by this time, at this age, and you're nowhere near it. And you go, well, what am I going to do now? I wanted to be CEO of Colgate-Palmolive, whatever. Just come up with something. And I'm in management, and there's 45, 50 people above me. Close, but no cigar. Some people out there had to work to get their degree to do what they had to do, or bypass getting a degree because they needed to take care of the family. And so now they get to a certain age, kids are grown. And what do we do now? Now you're sitting there looking at your life going, well, you know what? I could have been a really good XYZ. But I got to go back to school for that. And I'm already 45. What am I going to do now? And I think that a lot of times we might put too much emphasis on things like degrees and that sort of thing. I think that sometimes we have to look at it and determine, what can we do with what we have right now? What can we create with what we already have right now and move forward with what we have? Because I think that we as humans have a tendency of needing to collect things to be good at things. So when I was younger, I was a professional photographer. And I remember when I was moving out of the photography, as far as the modeling agencies that I was working for, and moving into more of family portraits and, weddings and stuff like this. And this was a long time ago. I was doing this throughout school. And I remember thinking I needed all this equipment. I needed to have the best of lights. I needed to have the best of tripods. I mean, I didn't use all that stuff in the industry, in the freaking professional industry, but I thought that in order to make myself do well on this, I needed to get all the equipment. And you know what? The equipment didn't mean anything. It's about the technique. It's about the ability. It's more about the wherewithal and the belief in yourself. And I think a lot of times in life, when we get older, we believe that we have to have all this outside stuff to identify ourselves with, to give us value. We also buy into the system because the system wants you to always feel like you're at a deficit, wants you to always feel like you're not good enough. Because if you feel like you're good enough, then you're not racing. When you're not racing, then you're enjoying life. If you're enjoying life and you're happy, then you're not taking a bunch of pills. If you're not taking a bunch of pills, you're not giving all this money to the pharmaceutical companies. If you're not giving all the money to the pharmaceutical companies, then what are you doing? Because if you've watched CNN lately for even 5 minutes, you know that the ad space is taken by every single new drug on the market. If you've got diabetes, you better be watching CNN. If you've got low blood pressure or high blood pressure or herpes or you got low testosterone, you better be watching CNN. Because CNN's going to tell you what drugs you need to take. Okay? And I think that when you become happy, though, and you can become self-assured with yourself, you're able to sit there and go, well, you know what? I don't need anything to define me. I define me. I make me. I'm me. And, I think, though, when we're about to hit a midlife crisis, we don't feel that way at all. We feel lesser than. We feel like we don't even know who we are. Because a lot of times, a lot of us that are going through this process right now, let's be honest, you raised a family. You were a kid that ended up having kids, and you raised a family. And you had to get a job, and you did what you did, and you got a house, and you did everything you could, and you did all the stuff, and you got the picket fence, and you got the car, and you got this, you got that. And eventually you sit back, and the kids have moved out. They occasionally see mom and dad when they need something. If you got younger kids, like 18, 19, they come back and do their laundry, and most of them, they got their own family, and then you're sitting there going, well, gosh, Lee, here's the wife and I hanging out at the house. Huh. Yep. Now I got all that time to do what I always wanted to do, but, it's almost like thinking about having a baby again. Think about it. Once all the children move out of the house, it's like thinking about having another child. Okay? Because it can be kind of overwhelming. Because, if you had another baby, that's another 18 years in the house at least. That's if you raise them right. Or if they okay, and you know what I'm saying. No judgment call here, just a point. And I think that, starting a new life within a life can feel like having a baby. And I think that most men can understand what I'm talking about, too, because it's not just women that have the baby. It's the men that have to deal with it, too. And it's like a new birth, a creation of your life. And I think that when you're looking toward answers and wondering what to do and what your legacy is going to be, you start worrying and wondering, do you have a legacy? What is it for me? What can I talk about? What matters to me? And I think that's where, we kind of want to look at eventually, is to decide what really truly matters in your life. What are the things that maybe you haven't been dealing with because you've been dealing with everybody else's issues for so long, or concerns? What do you need to deal with? Because in life, we all have goals that need to be satisfied. We do. We're all here for a reason. And I think that the midlife crisis comes up when we feel like we actually haven't lived here and done what we needed for the reason why we're here. And we don't really know what the reason is, and so we go looking for the reason. And that's something that I'm really good at dealing with. That's something I'm really good about helping clients find is their purpose. Because purpose is a big deal. No matter what people tell you, purpose is a big deal. Our life, everybody has a certain specific purpose. And if we find that purpose and we understand how to attain said purpose, right? And that's a lot of weight off our shoulders, because the purpose of raising the kids and doing that was part of the purpose, but there's something else there. There's something else there, because there had to be something that the soul of the human that had to take place that is from A to B, that has to be attained, that has to be understood, that needs to be taken care of to have complete happiness and freedom. Because when we figure out our purpose and we understand the direction we're supposed to go, and there will be questions here and there to make sure if we're still following purpose, we're still going on the line of sight, if we're still following where we need to follow. But once we figure out that purpose, a lot of the puzzle pieces come together and our life makes more sense. So in return, we'll be talking more about goals that aren't satisfied, as well as feeling like we're behind the 8 ball. So stay tuned, because Perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess, will be back in 2 shakes.
You could be my luck. Get in here. You're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. Tonight we've been talking about the danger of midlife crisis. Are you in danger of having one? I've been identifying the 6 factors that can spark a midlife crisis, because I think these are important. Besides symbols, besides actions, I think that we need to be able to identify the factors that begin right before the crisis takes place. And right before the break, we were talking about goals not being satisfied. Are the life goals that we haven't achieved? We feel like life is passing us by. I wanted to be at XYZ by this time. We've all been there where we go, man, I would have thought I would have been more successful by now. I would have thought I would have been able to make more money by now. And then we start defining ourselves against our friends. And we all have those few friends that, we love them to death, but they're definitely not shy. And they definitely boast and brag. I have a friend of mine, God bless him, love him to death, but every time he makes another expenditure, he goes and tells me about it and tells me about how much he paid. And for someone that has been working really hard and hasn't been seeing that kind of financial payout, you have to check yourself. You got to check yourself. You got to just let it lie. You got to let it go. You know what I mean? Just got to let it go, because you have to check yourself and you have to realize, okay, this is okay. I can make this. I can do this. I might have thought I wanted to be here. I might have thought that I could have been there by now. But you know what? I got to keep on going where I'm going. I got to keep realizing where I am, feel where I am, move on to where I am, and go from where I need to go, and continue to look at it from that direction. But it's hard sometimes because we want to be there, not here, there. We would have thought we would have been there by now. And that can be difficult. The next factor that kind of is key to the onslaught of the midlife crisis is that we feel that life is passing us by. We feel behind the 8 ball. Honestly, not a game of pool here. We're feeling behind the 8 ball. We feel like we're missing out. We feel like the best cards have already been, the cards have gone out. Our hand is not very good. The cards have been dealt and we're done. We've been dealt out of life. It can feel that way. It can feel like we are missing out or behind the 8 ball. What are all our friends doing? But better yet, in our own mind, what were our dreams and aspirations that we had as a kid? And have any of those come to pass? Have any of them? And some of us just go, well, that's life. C'est la vie, c'est la vie. Did the best I can, doing the best I can, doing the best with what I have. But man, I really thought there could have been more. I really believe there was more to this than what I thought. I thought that I could do this. And I still think that you can. I think it depends on the way we look at it, and I think it depends on what we do. I mean, if we feel like we're behind the 8 ball, then we're definitely behind the 8 ball. We can't do anything. We're stuck. It's like when you're playing pool and somebody, they hit the cue and they hit the ball just the right way, and all of a sudden your ball is right behind the 8 ball and it's stuck between like a corner pocket. You're like, what am I going to do here? You hit the cue ball to the middle and you just wait, and you wait for something to happen. And sometimes we can feel that way where it just seems like, the wind is always at our face, it's never at our back. And I think we have to sit there and look at how do we perceive our life? What are we perceiving? But better yet, what are we missing out on? Because I think it's easy to sit there and say, well, I'm missing out, but what are you missing out on? We need clarity. We need distinct clarity and understanding to understand exactly what we're missing. Because if we're just saying we're missing stuff, but we don't know what we're missing, we're always going to feel lesser than. We're always going to feel like we're being dealt out of life's hand. I think one of the big ways that we always feel like we're behind the 8 ball or that life's passing us by is that we begin to daydream about the good old days. We begin to daydream about the good old days and catching ourselves kind of cruising backwards. And I've been there before, where you start daydreaming about the good old days, about what used to be, about the parties, about this, about that, about all this kind of stuff. And the next thing you know, you're no longer daydreaming about it. You're making it into full action. And I've had clients that have walked into my office and said, yeah, I think I have a problem. Well, explain. And they'll be like, well, I had one client, this is about a year ago, and it was funny because there was a movie out, I think it had Will Ferrell in it, and Luke Wilson, and they go back to college, and they start a fraternity, and the movie's name is called Old School. Old School. And it is a funny show. It's one of the favorites, I think. And this client came in and said, you know what? I've been living vicariously through my college years. I've been thinking about it. I catch myself daydreaming about it. I've recently been going out to pubs around my area after work. And I've been recently hanging out with a younger crowd. And I'm like, well, that's good. I mean, hanging out with younger people is a good thing because it gets your energy going again. You start having more fun again. And he was like, so how young is too young? And I said, well, I really hate to define age. I really just don't think that. I think age is just a number, and I think we have to put that in perspective. But then I was kind of like, now you got me interested. How young are you talking? He's like, 19? I was like, and you're about 50, 53? Yep. 1920. So what's been going on? Well, I've been kind of hanging out. That movie Old School kind of reminds me. I've been kind of going to some of the fraternity parties, some of the mixers, not the official college mixers, but they have mixers off campus at these various bars. And I've just been hanging out, having a good time. It's like old school. I go, so how was the wife taking all this? She's not really that happy with me. The last couple of times I've gotten home pretty late, about 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning. Kind of got pretty sick on alcohol one night. Hadn't drank that much in a while. Kind of puked all over the bathroom, that kind of thing. I felt bad about it. Got it all cleaned up and all. But, first time in about 20 years, I overdrank. I mixed tequila and beer together. Man, that was crazy. Didn't think I was going to be able to think the next day. And I'm thinking at first I thought it was kind of funny because, you know what? I think everybody's allowed to have a little bit of fun. Okay? I think everybody's allowed to have a little bit of fun. It just depends on what you do with it. And I told him, I said, I think it's okay, but I don't think this should be a lifestyle change. I mean, you are in your 50s, which is fine. It's not that old at all. I mean, 50's the new 35, right? Maybe it's the new 30. Oprah probably says it's the new 25, and I'm going to go with what Oprah says on this one. So, if it's the new 25, that's fine. But I think we have to put it in perspective. I mean, how much is too much? And I think we can daydream and we can go backwards and we can either have a little fun and kind of leave it there and realize that we still have it, or we can make it a lifestyle change. And when we make it a lifestyle change, we can ruin our current life. And it's funny because I was having dinner the other night with a friend of mine I hadn't seen in years, and he's a really cool actor and really neat. And we were talking about the difference between boredom and praying for boredom. And I was thinking about a situation that happened with some friends of mine, and long story short, but, a friend of mine, another friend of mine, both married, ended up having sex together and got the other one pregnant. And it's a long story, but everybody's still in their separate marriages, and it's a crazy situation. However, the one thing that I do know is that both of the people that were involved in this situation, I'm sure that when all this came to light, they were praying that they could go back to that bored lifestyle they had. If they could just go back to being bored, oh God, what they would do, they would go around saving kids, feeding the hungry, helping the elderly, taking the elderly to the dialysis machines at the hospital. They'll go all over the planet talking about Jesus Christ, okay? Seriously. You beg for that boredom to come back. Your whole life's topsy-turvy now. You've ruined everything. You pooped in your own backyard. And then you hope and pray that you can just go back to that bored state where you and your wife were watching Dancing with the Stars and none of this had happened. There wasn't any divorce talk and people running out of the house and somebody throwing all your stuff on the front lawn. Seriously. And we get into these issues when we're about to have a midlife crisis and going through the midlife crisis because we want change so bad we don't care what we screw up. But the problem is that we get this change, but that's not really what we want either. And so then we get more questions. Well, Laura makes me feel alive, 24 years old and I'm 51 and we were made for each other. Well, is it that Laura makes you feel alive, or is it just that you're actually going out and doing something? I mean, you've been so complacent for 15 years because you're married. Your wife's not the only one that's boring. You're boring. And sometimes instead of fixing what we already have, we want to go out and grab something new. And that something new normally isn't the fix. It's normally not the answer. And guess what? Now you got more questions, because why did I pick Laura? Maybe I need to go see a therapist because maybe there's something in the back of my mind of the reason why I picked Laura. Oh, my God, it's just like my mother. And I think we go through these processes when we're about to hit the midlife crisis because it's like we look back for the good old days. We look back to the time when I don't think we had a lot of responsibilities. I think that's a lot of it because responsibilities is a big thing. When we're responsible, we have to be responsible. We have to do the right thing. We have to step up to the plate. We got to take care of the kids, take care of the family, do all that kind of stuff. And it can become a lot sometimes. Sometimes we can feel like we don't even have a life. I think that's where the burnout comes in too, is we got to recognize when the burnout is beginning. We got to recognize it. We got to be honest, because honesty is the best policy. We got to be honest about, is this real burnout? Is this how I truly feel? What am I burned out about? Am I bored? Can I make changes? Can I reestablish this relation? Can I make this better? All interesting questions. When we return, we'll be talking more about these 6 factors that can spark a midlife crisis. And later on, I'm going to be helping everybody find a successful path to bypass this roadblock I like to call midlife crisis. Stay tuned, because Perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess, will be back this time in Touche.
You're in a good place now. You are listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. Are you in danger? Are you in danger of having a midlife crisis? On tonight's show, we've been identifying the 6 factors that can spark a midlife crisis. Later on in the show, I'm going to give you the tools to overcome the gateway issues and how to really successfully plow ahead in your own life, bypassing the midlife crisis altogether. I talked about earlier about the visible aspects, the visible signs, you might say, that a midlife crisis is in progress. I mean, the first thing is I think about the red Corvette. I think of the fast men, the fast women. I think of the drinking. I think of, the Morgan Freeman get the earring at the certain specific time. I mean, how many actors went through a midlife crisis and got the earring? Not so much anymore, but, that was a crisis. That was a crisis mode. Divorcing, dating younger women, dating younger men. Those are the things that we see as the crisis is continuing. However, what are the factors that really lead to having a midlife crisis? Because I believe that more important than the symbols are the factors, because these factors can help us to determine if we're going to have a midlife crisis. The first factor was experiencing burnout. Experiencing burnout. That's a big deal. When we have burnout in our private or professional life, we begin to question everything in our life. What's working? What's not working? Has any of this ever really worked? What's going on here? Is this really my life? Is this really my house? Is this my husband? Is this my wife? Is this my job? Is this all it's come down to it? Is this all I can say? What about also feeling as though the best years of our life are behind us? Like I was talking, it's a lot like the high school. It's like being in high school and playing football and not getting picked up in college and not getting picked up professionally. And a lot of people that love football, those are the best years of their life. Unless they join a league or something, or, if they're a cop or whatever, they join the football, tag football or what have you. But other than that, those are the best years of their life. And I think that's interesting because it's hard to ever get past the best years. When we define best years, we really take ourselves out of the equation. All of a sudden, what's happening now has no value. And I know I've been there before where you wonder, is this going to be the best years of my life? And maybe this was the best year of my life. Maybe it's never going to get any better than this. Maybe I carelessly took it all for granted. I'm going to weep in my own soup tomorrow because that was the best years of my life. It was the best years. Oh, my God. Oh, mascara all down my cheeks. You know what I'm saying? Best years of my life, phooey. Phooey. We're getting past this best year thing. We're going to figure this out. The third factor, remember the third factor? I don't know if you remember it or not. Goals are not satisfied. The goals have not been satisfied. Think about it. Life's goals they haven't been achieved. Again, we feel that life's passing us by. We wanted to be at XYZ quadrant by this time. Doggone it, it's 2015, almost 2016. I thought I was going to be here, but instead I'm over here. This is insane. I've been working my butt off for 20 years, and I'm still right here. Midlife crisis is about to happen. It's about to happen. Wee, 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 wee. Wah, wah, wah. It sounds like a baby and a police siren. I don't know about that. But anyway, think about that. The fourth one was feeling that we're behind the eight ball. Feeling that we're behind the eight ball, that we're kind of like wedged into a situation. And I like to use this analogy because when you are behind the eight ball in a game of pool, you're kind of stuck. You feel like you're stuck in life. And that's it, is that when you feel like you're behind the eight ball, you feel like you're stuck. You feel like you've kind of been dealt a not so good bill of goods. Like it's always like everybody always seems to be doing better. We're stuck. We're not moving. We're not progressing. We're stuck. And I think that that's inherently a problematic situation. I also feel that when we feel stuck, we do crazy things. You know how everybody says, when you get pushed into a corner, you're like a tiger fighting your way out of it. Well, you know what? I don't like to get pushed in the corner. And, nobody puts baby in the corner. But I'll tell you one thing, is that we can put ourselves in the corner. Can't we? We're good at being our worst enemy. We're good at being our worst judges. We're good at putting ourselves down. We don't need our mother-in-law to put us down. We can do it for ourselves, right? But you know what I'm saying? If anybody's going to put ourselves in the corner, it's ourselves. We wedged ourselves there. We stuck ourselves there. It was a comfortable corner at one point in time. The corner is no longer comfortable anymore. There's something wedging into my butt, and I think my underwear is coming up. I don't know what's going on. My panties are rising. What's happening here? And no, it's true. We get stuck. What about number 5? Bucket number 5. We feel like we're missing out on life. We feel like everybody else has got a good beat on things, that everybody else knows what they're doing, that we got to be missing out on the best years of our lives because everybody else has got to be living a better life than us. We're missing out. Just plain old missing out. Nothing good going to come out of this. Might as well just take up smoking and sit at the front lawn and hang out for a while because you know what? That's as good as it's going to get. Well, when we feel like we're missing out, we got to figure out what are we actually missing out on. You know, I used to be one of those people when I was younger. I always thought I was missing something. You know what I'm saying? I always thought I was missing something. Like, there's got to be a bigger party. There's got to be 5 parties going on. I'm missing a party. There's got to be a party. I got to get out there. I got to mix and mingle because I know I'm missing the best party of the year. And eventually I realized I'm not missing the best party of the year. I'm just not. And there's a time when you feel that way, and then there's a time when you have to sit there and analyze, what are you actually thinking you're missing? What are you actually missing? And that's key, because it depends on what's important to you. You know, if getting to Hollywood and doing something's important to you, then great. If raising your family is important to you, great. If going to the next big kegger is important to you, then you got to figure that out as well. That's the way life is. That's how it is. We got to figure out that kind of stuff and put our priorities first and foremost. Number 6, the sixth factor. The sixth factor. The sixth sense, really, is daydreaming about the good old days and catching ourselves cruising backwards to relive those good old days. You know, I've done it before where I figured, well, you know, those were some good days. Might as well try it again, see if it lives up to the hype that I've been bringing it up to for the last 3 years that I've been living the hardcore life of responsibilities. You know what I'm talking about. Everybody's had those days where you look back and you go, at first, maybe some of you might cringe because it depends on how good or bad or indifferent or how messed up you were. The other half of you might laugh, good chuckle, a good giggle. Some of you might not even remember them. But, you know, you think about those kind of things and you go, you know, you start daydreaming. And the daydreaming becomes more so. It takes up more of your time. Start wondering. Start calling up some of the old friends. Seeing what's going on. You know, start finding you in situations. And I have some friends that literally have almost ruined their marriages and everything else over going back down memory lane. Because it seems kind of fun at the time because, you know, we remember those years and those years where we didn't have really responsibilities. And if we did, we weren't responsible anyway, so it didn't really matter. I mean, seriously. I mean, you know, come on. And I think we get back to those and we start, you know, kind of backpedaling a little bit. Sometimes it's occasionally fun. And in the beginning, it might seem really fun, footloose and fancy free and flying by the seat of your pants, kind of, you know, moment to moment. But then there has to become an awakening at some point, a realization. And I think that the want and desire to run away from responsibilities is definitely part of a midlife crisis. And I think a lot of that's because we feel like we never had a childhood. We never grew up. And so for some of us listening tonight, I know that there's some of you out there that either had the life because you were a child actor or you felt like you had that same life as a child actor where you had all these great responsibilities as a child. Your family treated you like an adult. You never got a childhood and you resented that. And I think the same thing applies when we get married very quickly and we have children and we have these responsibilities. We never really had our 20s. You never really got to experience going crazy, going down the street to the bar, you know, having to get carried home Monday through Friday. You know, some people resent that fact. I mean, I have a good friend of mine. He's one of my best friends in the world. He's one of those people that he's got a lot going for him. Everybody loves him. Half of America knows him. And we were talking one time. I was about 18. And he's a little older than me. And we were hanging out and we were having a blast. We were getting into trouble. Let's just leave it at that. And we were getting into trouble. And I remember asking him, I said, you know, I mean, you're older than me. I mean, why are you just now getting into trouble? I mean, it seems to me like, you know, I mean, you're practically 40, and it just seems like you would, I don't know, had already gotten into trouble. And he's like, well, I never got a chance. I was always having to take care of everybody else and do everything and live a specific life. And, you know, it just came a time where I want to have fun. And I don't see why I can't have fun either. And I think it comes a time when people feel like they've never been able to have fun, let loose, let their hair down, have a little bit of fun. And I think that becomes an issue. And I think that can be part of the onset of the midlife crisis. And that can be a problem because the thing is that if you really want to enjoy yourself and have fun, it might not necessarily be that way. But if you've never experienced it, you kind of want to check it out. And I think that the only time that it becomes crisis mode is when you throw off your responsibilities and start ruining your life to experience something you haven't experienced, because we have to remember that everything should be in moderation. And moderation is a key. And in my latest book, The 10-Day Challenge to Live Your True Life, the 10 days, it's only 10 days. I'm not talking about 365 days and a bunch of follow-ups and check into the sober living home. I'm just saying... The last day is about moderation. It's about we can do a lot of things in life and you can have a lot of fun, but you got to learn how to moderate your life. You got to know how things are sometimes extreme, because some of us have a tendency of taking everything to an extreme. Heck, I have a friend of mine that was addicted to M&Ms. Okay? Big deal here. You can be addicted to anything. You can take anything to an extreme. But that's part of the midlife crisis. So in return, we're going to be talking about the actual things that you can do to successfully bypass your possible midlife crisis. Stay tuned, because Perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess, will be back in 2 shakes.
Turn it up and jump in the deep end on Perspectives. Now, here's Ashley.
Welcome back live to Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. You know, tonight on Perspectives, we've been talking about the dangers of having the midlife crisis. Are you in danger? Are you in danger of having a midlife crisis? You know, I've identified the 6 factors that can spark a midlife crisis, and now it's time to understand the factors, but to get some tools to overcome, to plow down these issues, and to actually bypass a midlife crisis altogether. And you know, I think one of the first tools, one of the first concepts that we can use to start bypassing a midlife crisis is to stop defining what our best years of our life is. Overall, stop defining. You know, a lot of times we get ourselves into trouble because we define something a certain way. Okay? You know, I have a funny story for you. My dad's a salesman. He does medical sales. And he's a great person. We love each other. And one day he was at an event and they were doing something, and there's a large crowds, and this man and this woman walk in and he starts talking to him, you know. And the next thing you know, my dad goes, "How long are you along? How far are you along?" And she said, "Excuse me?" He goes, "How far are you along? When are you going to give birth? How far are you along in the pregnancy?" And she looked at my dad, and the man looked at my dad and said, "Goodbye." And she goes, "I'm not pregnant, you jerk." Why is it that we always got to define something, okay? In this situation, she was not pregnant. It might have looked like it, but it doesn't need definition. So let's think about this. Why is it that we have to define what our best years are? Because I think we have to sit back and realize that when we define things like this, we're actually judging our life. We're actually judging our life. It's like we've become what? Siskel and Ebert? Remember Siskel and Ebert? They were the guys that rated the films, right? You know, either 2 thumbs up, 1 thumb down, or 2 thumbs down. And when we judge our life and define things as being the best years of our life, it's like constantly having Siskel and Ebert around with the 2 thumbs down. "Oh, this is a crappy film. Oh, your life? Crappy. Worst film ever. Juju Fruit won't even make that better." Seriously, and that's what we're doing when we're constantly defining the years of our life. So begin now by not ever using the phrase, "the best years of my life." Right? You don't need it anymore. Throw it out. It ain't working for you. If anything, it's ruining your life because you're constantly wanting to get back to those best years. But were they really the best years? I mean, come on. Let's be honest. I mean, look at them. I mean, do we need to pull pictures and videotape to prove the fact? Because maybe we do. Because I know that our minds can play tricks on us sometimes. I know our minds might tell us that, yes, indeed, this was the best time of my life, and, oh, I'd give anything to be back there. That's just milk and honey right there. That's just, oh, my God, that's just best years of my life. Okay, well, you know what? They weren't. And quit defining it. And so now we have to look at life and realize that if we don't define it and we stop making judgment calls, that our whole life can be really great. What's to say that we have to have a best few days? Why can't we have a best life? My best life. I mean, my true life. You know, live your true life. I mean, that was my first book, Live Your True Life. Live it. Why can't you have the best life? Why can't you have that life that all the days of life are great? That life is always good. And I'm not saying that you're not going to have hard times. And I'm not saying that there's not going to be ups and downs and ebbs and flows. And I'm definitely not going to say that some days are going to be crappy. They're not going to be fun. They're not going to be good. You're going to be unhappy. You're going to wish you didn't get out of bed. But for the most part, that's a minority of days. That's a small amount of days. The majority, when we stop the judgment and realize that every day of our life is great, it all changes. It's like we take the filter off the camera, the drudgy kind of damp, kind of dark filter, and we rev it up and sparkle it. I mean, I'm about to do a video to explain kind of my process of what I do and what I do as a therapist and a life coach. And I figured that honestly, a lot of times when we're not living our true life, it's like we're looking through like soiled, dirty glasses. And I mean this in a way where it affects all your senses. And it's funny, you know, like when you're looking through a pair of glasses and you have a bunch of finger smudges and what have you. Maybe they've fallen on the ground too many times. You know, you hit it on the concrete. They got like little divots and wedges in them. You know what I'm talking about. And you have all this kind of going. You're trying to look through those glasses, and it's hard. It can kind of give you a headache a little bit, make you not feel so good. Constantly cleaning them, but realizing it's not doing you any good. And that's a lot of times when we're judging our lives and saying that our best years of our lives are behind us, that's like looking through those glasses. We might as well just turn our head around, look backwards, and walk backwards. Because that's the only place we're going to be going. Because when we're constantly thinking that there's better in the past, we don't live in the present. We live in the past. I mean, that's worse than daydreaming and living in the future. It's about the same. It's got the same amount of reality to it. None. None. Isn't that weird? Remember when we were kids? Remember when we were young kids and we were always dreaming about something like what we were going to create or what we were going to do, you know? And it's like you stop the daydreaming and you're realizing that daydreaming's fun and all, but you can daydream yourself into 80 years old like that. Be in the now. And when we're in the now and we stop judging ourselves, we become in the now because judgment takes us out of living. The judgment, our personal judgment on ourselves, takes us out of living because when we judge ourselves, what happens, right? Okay, I'll let you know. When we judge ourselves and we judge our life, we judge ourselves and we look at our life and we place judgment. And when we place that judgment, we move out of living and onto a sideline. It's like we become Siskel and Ebert. It's like we become a referee at your kid's softball game, okay? And instead of being at your kid's softball game, you're watching your life. And so you go up to bat, and as you go up to bat, you go, oh, God, I'm never going to hit this ball. Ball is euphemism for whatever you're dealing with in life. And, you know, the ball comes, and you swing at it, and you hit into the dirt, and strike one! And you go, man, Jesus, I shouldn't have even come in today. This is awful. And then eventually, because of all the negative self-talk, we strike out, right? But we already knew we were going to strike out because we'd already prejudged ourselves because we knew we're not good enough. And then we sit back on the sidelines, we stand on the sidelines, and kind of go back to all the things we did wrong. Let's look at our stance. Let's look at the speed that we tried to hit the ball. We didn't even focus. We weren't even looking. We didn't even have any hand coordination, hand and eye coordination. What were we thinking? And a lot of times that's how we live our life, is that we're constantly judging ourselves. We got this negative thought process, this dialogue, this negative broken record type, gets us nowhere, beats us down dialogue. Got that going for us. And we judge ourselves right out of living. And so that is my first concept to talk about tonight, is to stop the judgment. Stop putting judgment and stop defining your life as good or bad or best or worst. It's your life, and be in the moment. And the more we stop defining the moment, the better we are. Because all of a sudden, nothing's good, nothing's bad. It just is. It's just the way it is. And it's amazing because when we say and we define things, it's almost like making a doctrine, and we can't change the doctrine. But this is a really good idea, is to stop putting judgment and labels on your life and start living your life for once. When we return, we'll be talking more about the other things that you can do to bypass a midlife crisis and how you can do it effectively. So stay tuned, because Perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess, will be back in 2 shakes.
This is Jake Busey, and you're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. Are you in danger of having a midlife crisis? We've been identifying the 6 factors that can spark a midlife crisis. And we've been beginning to actually talk about the tools that you can use to overcome these issues and to plow ahead in your life and bypass the midlife crisis really altogether. Right before the break, we were discussing the first concept, the first thing you can do to get past falling in the trap of having a midlife crisis. And that was to stop defining the best years of your life. Get rid of that phrase, oh, these are the best years of my life. Get rid of it now. There are no best years. Seriously, because when we define our life like that, we judge our life. And we don't even live our life anymore because we're too busy judging ourselves. Well, those are the best years of our lives. So right now, this is crap. This is it. It's just all downhill from here. I might as well just go on and die. But I'm serious. It's like literally having Siskel and Ebert around with 2 thumbs down all the time telling you about how bad your life is. Stop judgment, stop defining. This is a miracle worker. Because all of a sudden there are no best years. There's nothing to try to work back toward. There's nothing to really daydream about. And you realize that every day of your life can be a great day. It's a great day you're here. It depends on how you define it. The second thing that you can do that can really help you bypass and plow ahead away from the midlife crisis is to find your purpose. I know, that's a big deal right there. That's a big one. That's a doozy. Whew. That's a big one. It's to find your purpose. You have to know what your purpose is in order to pursue it. What is your purpose? We all have a purpose. A personal purpose, I think. I think that we all have purposes that come together, we get married for, we work for, we raise children for. Those can be our common purposes. Those common purposes that we have when we share them with our spouse or our family, our friends, co-workers, common purpose. But I think that there's generally a purpose, something that only we can do, that needs to be told, needs to unfold, needs to come to light, needs to come to the surface. And I think when it comes to the surface and we're able to identify it, it changes our life forever. All of a sudden, our life has what? Has purpose. There's a lot to be said for that. And in my practice, I work with people and their purposes. That's one of the best things that I do. It's one of the quickest things I can do compared to most people out there. And it's just the way it is. There's certain people that know how to find your path. That's why they call me the Pathfinder. And to me, when you find your purpose, you find your path. And the cool thing is that if you're married and you have kids, or you're just married, or you have family, they can walk next to you on a path, but you have your own drummer. And when you find that purpose gives you the beat to play in the drum. So whether your drum happens to be a steel drum, which I think mine is, or yours happens to be some other type of drum, the point is that purpose helps to define self. And not in a judgmental way, but in a formatory, formational, understanding, enlightening, clarity way. All of a sudden, I realize why certain things have happened in my life. All of a sudden, I understand what a lot of this means and why I do what I do. I'm able to grasp things. I'm able to understand. I'm able to see the bigger picture. And in the beginning, when we find purpose, it's not like, oh, glorious purpose, glorious. Oh, it's so glorious. Look at the light. Look at the light. Yes, it's nice to find purpose. But we have to figure out, how do we pursue purpose? If my purpose is XYZ, then how do I plan on finding and grabbing and holding on to XYZ? How do I do it? Figure it out. We got to figure it out together. And purpose is one of those things that I find a lot of my clients have found they fall into a midlife crisis is because they feel like their life has no purpose. Or they know that they have purpose, but they can't figure it out. Or they feel like they're stuck and behind the eight ball. They feel like they're wedged into something that they're supposed to be their identity, and they don't feel like it's them. I mean, how many people listening right now, you included, is this the exact life that you would have picked? And if it is, that's great. But is there other things that are missing in it? Do you feel sometimes that you're not really jumping up to your purpose? That there might be more of a calling for you? There might be something more there that you can get a lot of fulfillment from. Think about it. There's a lot of things out there, and a lot of times we don't examine it because we feel like, okay, I got this going on and that going on. I can't really add anything else to the mix. But you know what? Purpose is a big deal. And a good way of trying to figure out purpose is to understand maybe the things that you loved as a child. When you're a kid, when you're footloose and fancy-free, maybe 4, 5, 6 years old, what were some of the things that really interest you? Think about it. Ponder it a second. What are some of the things that really interest you as a child that would get you very happy and energetic, just like starry-eyed, or very passionate about? What are those things? What are they? And think back to that, because a lot of times we kind of snuff out those things because we don't really feel like they might help us in our adult life. And so I ask y'all who are listening right now to maybe get out a piece of paper, a notebook, and write down those things that you can remember, because it might not come to you right now, but you might want to put this notebook by your bed because it might come to you in your sleep. What were the things that you loved to do as a child? What were those things that stand out? I mean, I know that I loved to talk as a kid. Seriously, I always helped people as a kid. When I was a kid, even when I was 5 and 6, I was giving advice because people were asking for it. I know I was 6 years old, but they were still asking. And they were substantially older than me. Apparently, they thought I had some sort of gift. And I guess I knew I had it. So I decided I wanted to help people. I'm good at it. That was something I did as a kid. I also loved photography as a kid, and I was a professional photographer for a while when I was going through school. I do that as a hobby now. There's some things that we love that are hobbies, and some things that we love that can make us more well-rounded, and some things that will actually add to our enjoyment of life. And other things are the true purpose. They're it. They're the end-all, be-all to life's existence. There's a reason. There's a reason for the seasons. There's a reason for life. There's a reason to be here. And I think there's more than just one reason to be here, but I think that there's a good purpose that you have that you can honestly execute, that others will be in awe over, and that you subsequently will find even more meaning in life. Less questions, more answers. That's what Ashley Burgess is about. That's what Burgess is about, is less questions, more answers constantly. Because who wants more questions? Okay? There's enough questions out there. I don't really want to ask you any more questions. I'm just going to help supply you with the answers. Because you know what I'm saying to be truth. You know it. You can feel the difference between lies and truth, and you know that right now you're hearing the truth on Perspectives with Ashley Burgess, where the truth is told in a judgment-free zone 24/7, Sunday through Sunday. Wow. And that's what my purpose is to allow people to hear the truth, to supply it, to honestly give it out authentically, and to help people find their purpose and to find their true path so that there'll be more happy people in this world. And I won't be the only one drinking the Kool-Aid, the fun Kool-Aid, the happy Kool-Aid, the life is a good thing. I'm not going to judge myself. And on top of that, guess what? I'm learning a lot. I'm living a lot. And this is a good time for me. And it is when we allow it to be. And let's not BS and say that, oh, Ashley's always constantly, everything's always great. She's always so happy. Oh, look at her with the rainbows and the unicorns. No, there's some times where I get down too. But I got to pick myself back up again, and I got to, realize that I'm down. I got to be able to understand why. Sometimes it's because, maybe I thought I was going to be in XYZ at this point in time. Maybe I thought I was going to be there. Maybe I feel sometimes a little bit like I'm wedged in behind the 8-ball. Maybe I feel like I could have been here or there by that point in time. Maybe I feel like not all my goals are satisfied. Okay? We all feel that way. It's a normal feeling. It's just what we do about it. What we do about it is what changes our life. We're in this together, whether we like it or not. We are. And we got to step up to the plate and realize we're in it together. Let's do what we can and make this life, make our life, best life ever. So stay tuned because I'll be giving you the next tips to make sure that you bypass the midlife crisis. Stay tuned because Perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess, will be back in 2 shake.
You could be my luck. Get in here. You're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. Tonight we've been talking about the danger of having a midlife crisis. Are you in danger of having a midlife crisis? We've been identifying the 6 factors that can spark a midlife crisis, and then we've been also talking about the tools that we can use to overcome these gateway issues and to successfully plow ahead in our life, bypassing the midlife crisis altogether. And right before the break, we were talking about not defining our best years, getting rid of the judgment in our life, realizing that judgment only causes us to live outside of the now, that actually puts us with 2 thumbs down. Finding your purpose, number 2. When we find our purpose, it allows us to better our life. It allows us to put things into perspective. It allows us to have more answers, less questions. Because it seems like the more questions we have, the rougher it becomes. Nobody wants a lot of questions in their life. Nobody wants to sit there and think over and over again about, did I do this right? Did I do that right? Is this the right way? Is this the right thing? And purpose really helps us figure that out because we all have joint purposes with other people, to live together, to help, responsibility of children, marriage, family, work, careers, things like that. But we also have a soulful purpose that each of us have on our own. And once we can figure what that is, we can actually strive to actually attain it. And in that process of understanding, just the understanding part, it changes everything. It changes absolutely everything because we're able to sit there and say, you know what? I get it now. I get it now. And I want you to go back and write that notebook or get that piece of paper out and put it by your bed tonight or whenever you're listening to this show, because I think that eventually you're going to remember the things that you loved as a child. And some of those could be really great hobbies and some of those can just add to life's enjoyment. Well, maybe one of those connects directly to your purpose. I mean, mine that connected directly to my purpose was my ability to write, to help the human spirit, to guide people. And I was giving therapy. At 6 years old, I was giving therapy to adults. That's kind of a clear-cut vision. And I know that some of you might go, well, that's easy for you to say. But, I went way far away from my purpose for a while when I was going through school because I just didn't think it could be that easy. I didn't think that that was the direction. I thought that it would be harder. And now I realize that life's not as hard as we make it. And I sure made life pretty hard for myself at one time or another. And I think some of us all learned the hard way when it came to certain things. Okay, the ones that didn't learn the hard way, well, kudos for you. Yes, I said that in a certain sarcastic way. Kidding. But no, I did some of the things the hard way, and I did it because I didn't really believe in my purpose. I didn't think that was my purpose. I kind of didn't believe in purpose in general. I was like, well, what gives me purpose? I mean, I'm just another human in this whole deal. And what does that mean I have purpose? Everybody has purpose, and everybody has the next level to get to. And the cool thing is that purpose opens another door. Purpose opens another doors, windows, avenues, gives us options, but it also gives us answers. And I think a lot of times when we hit a midlife crisis, we're looking for answers and we're looking to live. We just want to live our lives and not get told what to do anymore. Well, when we find purpose, we realize what we're living for, even more so than what we're already living for. And when we're able to understand how to take our purpose and formulate it and put it in with other people in our lives and carry it out, that's magnificence. That's it. It's not going and buying a fast car, and you can have a fast car if that's what you like. But I'm just saying that a lot of times in midlife crisis, we ruin our lives to a certain degree to find ourselves when ourselves are already there right now, looking at yourself in the mirror. You didn't have to go looking for it. It's right there. You just kind of have to sit down and listen a little bit. Take some time for yourself. You don't always have to be around people all the time. You can have a little bit of quietness. I'm hoping you're listening to the show and analyzing your life and realizing there's more to life than meets the eye. And guess what? It's pretty cool. Last but not least, a way to bypass the midlife crisis altogether is what I was alluding to, is to get connected to yourself. Get genuinely, honestly, truthfully connected to yourself. Stop the lies, stop the BS, stop the negative self-talk, and I can help you with that. If this show takes you to a certain level, that's great. If you need more help, I'm there. That's what I do, is that we get in and we get you connected to yourself, and I can do that with people, no matter what your age is, no matter what your position of life is. I can help you find yourself. And when you're doing that, you have to realize that you have to eliminate excess pills and potions that you might be taking. You got to realize who you are. Do you have anxiety? Do you have stress? Do you have anger? Where is that anxiety? Where is that stress? Better yet, where is that anger coming from? I mean, we got to pinpoint these things. We got to deal with these things, get past them, refocus, illuminate purpose, and move on. Because life's too short to be stressed out. Life's too short to be anxiety-ridden. And life is way too short to be angry all the time. And there was a time in my life when I was angry. Sure. I couldn't be in this studio and tell you and give you the information, the authentic information that I know, without actually going through it. That's a big difference. It's something you're not going to hear everywhere. It's because most people will tell you what you should do. Well, you know what, John? You need to do this. But they've never even been through it. They don't have an idea if that works or not. Well, I know what works because I've done it. I've done it a few times. Yeah, it took me more than once for it to stick. I told you I learned the hard way. You heard me. So in order to learn the hard way, and most of you do learn the hard way because we're all kind of similar in this situation. A few of you don't. Okay, we heard you. You don't. That's fine. But for everybody that has learned the hard way, you know what it means. We have to learn it ourselves. But it's good sometimes for somebody else to say, hey, I learned it the hard way, and this is what happened. And you might go through this, but that's to be expected. And that's where I come in. And we have to get connected to ourselves on a soulful connection, because then and only then can we really see what's important in our lives. We have to get past the excess alcohol, excess drugs and pills. We have to be able to identify why we feel anxiety-ridden, stress, or anger. We have to understand where they're coming from, where these emotions and feelings are coming from, and identify them and understand and acknowledge what's happening. And only then can we really understand ourselves. Because we as humans are funny. It's like we want to know a lot, but we only want to know just enough that it only takes a few minutes to get there. But you know what? You're really doing yourself a disservice if you're not getting to know yourself. Because you're your greatest advocate or you're your greatest freaking beater down. You can be your best advocate if you realize your purpose and you begin to embrace the things that set you apart. I mean, one of the things that has set me apart my entire life, I'm sure if you really think about it, you can guess it. It's not very hard. I mean, let's just take consideration what we're doing here is, we're on a radio and you're hearing me talk. And so ding, 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 ding. Oh, yeah, Ashley's voice. Yeah, my voice is different. It's different from almost every single person out there. It's like the Morgan Freeman of female voices. Okay? I could play, the female god in the God film, something like that. Just kidding. Well, maybe not. But think about it. I went through that my whole life, wanting to have that really high-pitched cheerleader voice that all the other girls had. And it wasn't until I was able to actually embrace this that it's actually come to help me out. We all have those things in life that once we embrace it, it becomes our greatest strength. But until we embrace it, it's our biggest detriment. It's our biggest downfall because we hate on it. We don't like it. We put it down. We try to cover it up. We try to change it. We try to not be authentic. We try to be untruthful. And with that in mind, find your purpose. Begin to look for your purpose. Begin to connect with yourself. Take away the things that are hiding you from your real self. Take those away and begin to piecemeal it together. There's more to you. If you're feeling like you're having a midlife crisis, you're actually ignoring a lot of things that are being said and done within your body right now. You're ignoring yourself. And you're looking for fun and craziness outside of yourself when you need to look right inside. Last but not least, quit defining things. Your life is amazing. See it as amazing. Let go of the best of days. Let go of judging. Those are the best years of my life. Take that out of your vocabulary and realize that this is the best life. Stay tuned because Perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess, will be back this time in 3 shakes.